Exploring North Carolina is made possible by major financial support from DTS Software, Mainframe Storage Management Solutions, Exploring North Carolina is produced in partnership with the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, the largest natural sciences museum in the Southeast. Let it be your field guide to the treasures of North Carolina and beyond. And by UNC TV viewers like you.
Recently on Exploring North Carolina, we told you about Fort Bragg and its stellar environmental initiatives while still maintaining the highest levels of military training. We would be remiss, however, if we didn't tell you about the equally famous Marine base near Jacksonville.
If you are from North Carolina, the traditional preferred pronunciation is Camp Lejeune, but the official preferred pronunciation is now Camp Lejeune. Whether you pronounce it Lejeune or Lejeune, it is one of the great military training facilities in the world. Fort Bragg is located where the Piedmont and coastal plain come together in the Sandhills. But Camp Lejeune has an even more complex landscape with 11 miles of oceanfront, magnificent salt marshes, hardwood bottomlands, and longleaf pine forest.
Here at Camp Lejeune, you'll see an incredible array of equipment in the air, on the ground, and in the water, all used to train the highly mobile and effective United States Marines.
For this story, we went to the top, and we were honored to interview United States Marine Corps Brigadier General Robert Castelvi, the Commanding General of Marine Corps Installations East, which includes Camp Lejeune, Marine Corps Air Station New River, and Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point. We were also privileged to interview two North Carolinians with whom you may be familiar. The name Bill Friday has always been synonymous with innovation and higher education in North Carolina. Another effective problem solver and innovator is Bill Friday's nephew, Paul Friday, who is one of the top civilians of Marine Corps Installations East, where Paul is Director of Government and External Relations. Finally, few people know more about North Carolina's environment and its connection to quality of life and economic vitality than Bill Ross, former Secretary of the North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Bill has continued to work closely with North Carolina's military and bases across the Southeast in recent years. I have known Bill for over 40 years and also know him to be one of North Carolina's great champions of its natural resources. I asked General Castelvi to describe the size and scope of the lands comprising Camp Lejeune.
You know, we have the largest concentration of Marines and families in the world. In eastern North Carolina, 58,000 Marines, almost 72,000 family members. We operate a network of bases and training areas that are necessary to be able to provide a platform for our Marines to train, to conduct their military mission abroad, and provide a safe and secure place for the families. On the training side, it's an incredible opportunity. I mean, we're 125,000 square acres of land in eastern North Carolina that belongs to the Marine Corps, 11 miles of beachfront, over 80 ranges, 90 different maneuver training areas, an incredible network of opportunities for our Marines to be able to train, to hone their skills, to be able to fight our battles and serve as a crisis response force abroad.
While the primary function of the land is as a training base for Marines, I ask about the stewardship of natural resources on the same land.
we're helping preserve the environment. I mean, just here in Camp Lejeune, we've seen an incredible growth in the population of the red cockaded woodpecker, as well as other endangered species. We have got one of the largest sea turtle sanctuaries in the nation. So we're proud to be able to, we're proud of our conservationists and of our conservationist record. We're proud of what we've done to preserve the environment. So that's why we think it's a win-win. It's a win-win for the environment. It's a win-win for the people of Eastern North Carolina, and certainly a win for the Marine Corps and being able to continue to have the training areas that we need to train our forces.
Shortly after our interview with General Castelvi, we had the opportunity to see parts of Camp Lejeune seldom seen by the public. We saw longleaf pine savannas with wiregrass, wildflowers, and red cockaded woodpeckers. These lands are as beautiful as any in the southeast. We saw wetlands and hardwood bottoms that reminded us of the Roanoke River or the Black River. We got to see Spartina marshes that were as lush as any on the North Carolina coast. But when we got to the beach, we were not prepared for what we saw. On the same beaches used by huge landing craft and other amphibious vehicles, we saw sea turtles hatching at the base of sand dunes. At that point, we remembered what General Castelvi had told us, that Camp Lejeune is also a sea turtle sanctuary. Enjoy this sight seldom seen by North Carolinians, or anyone for that matter, the hatching of loggerhead turtles and their march to the sea. I asked Paul Friday and Bill Ross to describe the lands encompassing Camp Lejeune, which were acquired over 7 decades ago.
When this base was constructed, and it was all military bases were either sometime early to mid-1900s, so they themselves are treasures to this state of North Carolina. They have a lot of history to them. There are a lot of cultural and natural resources that are on our bases. And when these bases were built, ours in this case being on the beach coming inland, there's just a vast array of natural resources that are here that if we had not been here, no telling what would have come in its place. And we have a very strong ethos here to take care of what we have and manage it well, whether we're here or going to where we're having to take our challenges abroad. The fun that we get to have in this is that we were lucky enough when these bases were built, there wasn't much built up around these bases. They were fairly isolated, and the areas that are around them were very rural. And we have an opportunity to help keep it that way, as well as address the challenges that we have to do our primary mission, which is to train. So we work among all of our team and all of our professionals to not only be good stewards, but to ensure that we can do the mission that we have, which is to train to put our young men and women in harm's way.
One of the interesting things about the military presence in any state is that the bases were established many years ago in remote areas at the time. With the pressures of change and development over time, the areas around the bases have changed, and many of the bases have ended up being islands of biodiversity. And you could say that that's true with respect to the longleaf pine. two places where there are great examples of longleaf pine forests in North Carolina are Fort Bragg and Camp Lejeune.
In case you have forgotten, I asked Bill Ross to explain why longleaf pine ecosystems are so important to North Carolina and the Southeast.
The longleaf pine has been very important to North Carolina, both in terms of our natural history and cultural history. That's reflected in the toast, the official state toast of North Carolina, "Here's to the land of the longleaf pine." The wonderful thing about this forest ecosystem is the incredible diversity that it harbors from both the plant and animal perspective. All sorts of wonderful species in the ecosystem, from a host of rare wildflowers to an endangered woodpecker, the red-cockaded woodpecker, to those fascinating carnivorous plants, the pitcher plant and the Venus flytrap.
Although the lands have changed very little over the years, the equipment used by Marines has changed dramatically, as Paul Friday explains.
The Marine Corps is a very unique service in that it's not only a 911 call, but it's also requires a combined arms approach to doing our training. We have aircraft, we have both fixed wing and helicopters that are engaged. We have amphibious vessels that get us to shore, usually from Navy transports. We have tanks, we have armored vehicles that move us from place to place, as well as ground. And when we train, we do our best to accommodate all of those elements and bring all those elements to bear, because that's how we fight. So that creates a unique challenge that covers the land, the water, the air, as well as frequency spectrum in terms of how we train. And to put that over on a landscape, which is many, many, many counties of eastern North Carolina, and to do that in concert with our communities, in concert with our other partners, is our challenge, but that's what we enjoy doing, is trying to create that environment that allows us to take advantage of the ocean that we have here, of the forested areas that we have here, the external areas that are heavily forested as well as involved with agriculture, and the cultural resources that are abound, and to do that in a way that not only accomplishes our mission, but shows sustainability in the long term.
We saw the amazing osprey flying in the skies over Camp Lejeune, but we also saw its namesake. We saw helicopters hovering and landing on both land and water, along with the creatures they imitate. We saw Marines heavily camouflaged, and we also saw the creatures who do it even better. And again, we saw amphibious landings and departures on the pristine beaches of Camp Lejeune. On Exploring North Carolina, we have seen the best of this state, and from our observations, we are convinced that rigorous training on the land and sea is not incompatible with quality ecosystems. In all good stories, there are problems to solve, and the Camp Lejeune story is no different. Over the years, growth around the base has begun to threaten and restrict training activities, especially beyond the fence. General Castelvi explains.
Well, what we found was incompatible growth, haphazard growth, economic development was a threat really to our military mission. So we saw a great opportunity to partner with farmers, to partner with landowners, to keep farms and farmland and forests and forestry, and be able to ensure that we had the air, land, and sea spaces to be able to accomplish our mission. So it's Sentinel Landscape that really allowed us to be able to forge those relationships. Sentinel Landscape came about because we realized, and through the Department of Defense, that we needed to better connect our training areas, both air maneuver and ground space that we use to train, and take advantage of all the resources that we have in eastern North Carolina. We knew we needed to have a partnership And we'd had that partnership with landowners for many years. And they did that through their own goodwill. We don't think they were adequately rewarded many times. And what Sentinel Landscapes really did for us, what allowed us really to put a partnership together with the military, with local and state governments, with farmers, forestry owners, and with our conservationists to ensure that we had mutual interests and we had a way to be able to move forward and accomplish our military mission and take care of their needs as well.
The Sentinel Landscapes program, mentioned by the General, has been of great benefit to the Marine base and to many adjoining counties in eastern North Carolina. Paul Friday and Bill Ross explain these benefits.
We primarily use these bases for training, but we have other responsibilities and stewardship roles that we play, and therefore we have to take a broader, in this case, eastern North Carolina wide look. As I said, we train in approximately 28 counties in eastern North Carolina. That requires that you build partnerships, that you not only go out and talk to the community leaders from a governance standpoint, but the individual landowners become extremely important here in eastern North Carolina. And that creates a completely different dynamic. And not only is that land 90% privately held, it's primarily in agricultural production, which is a very compatible use to the way we train right now. And by sustaining those compatible resources in those forms, being in forestry or in agriculture, not only is good for our mission, but it's good for the rural agrarian economy here in eastern North Carolina. We define that landscape and where we train as a Sentinel landscape, something that's important to watch over, and to watch over that with our community and other partners. And it's very expansive here in eastern North Carolina, and we've been very mindful, particularly in the last decade, with the loss of those Sentinel lands outside of our bases to development that is not as compatible to what our needs are to do our training mission. In fact, over the last decade, there's been an average loss in this state of roughly 100,000 acres a year of just farmland. If you added on top of that the forest land that could be converted in a way that would not be so compatible with our mission, it goes well over that 100,000 acres per year.
The Sentinel Landscapes program at Camp Lejeune is an interesting innovation that takes good ideas from Fort Bragg and Camp Lejeune and builds on them, but builds on them far beyond the fence line of the base. It recognizes that spread across the landscape of eastern North Carolina are compatible interests. Those include training and testing soldiers, agriculture, and conservation. And the idea is to advance all those goals together. And it's being done under this Sentinel Landscapes program with several different initiatives. One has to do with protecting a military training route by paying the landowners who volunteer to participate to keep the land in a way that's compatible with the jets that fly low and fast over the land. Another initiative has to do with supporting local farmers and helping get their products onto farmers markets and into the commissaries and chow halls on the bases. And a third initiative has to do with finding ways to encourage working forests to remain working forests through important parts of eastern North Carolina.
I asked Bill Ross, who has vast experience in both the public and private sectors in North Carolina, to explain why the military Sentinel Landscapes program is good for this state.
These collaborations that focus on conservation, on military readiness and training, and on agriculture are very important for lots of reasons in North Carolina. They're important to the quality of life in our state, but they're also very important to the economic prosperity of our state. The military presence is a huge economic engine for North Carolina, and its continuing health depends on the health of not just the bases, but also the ranges, the entire network of military facilities that spread across both eastern North Carolina and other parts of the state.
The Sentinel Landscapes initiative and other cooperative programs could not have occurred without the help of many other partners. Bill Ross explains.
A central aspect of the innovations that have come out of Fort Bragg and Camp Lejeune has been the central role played by non-governmental organizations, environmental nonprofits, said another way, such as the Nature Conservancy, the Conservation Fund, the Environmental Defense Fund, the Coastal Federation, local land trusts, and many, many others. They have been wonderful partners as the state and the military have worked to solve the challenges that will allow the military to train and ecosystems to be protected.
During our visit to Camp Lejeune, we saw visible manifestations on base and off of partnerships that are benefiting both the base and the local economy. I asked Paul Friday to tell us more.
Talking about farmers markets puts a big smile on my face because it is a very visible local sign of what we're doing to buy local. It's one thing to be trying to improve the quantity that we buy in our commissaries and what we do in our chow halls and what we may do in our other areas where we buy food, whether it be catering services or otherwise. But a farmer's market's a very visible stake in the ground that we all can look at with some sense of pride. And gratefully, 3 months ago, policy did come down that allows us to do that. And we'll do that in partnership with our commissaries and with our Marine Corps Community Services folks to do the best job that we can to set up a farmer's market here on base that will meet not only the needs of our young men and women that are in uniform, but also the civilian workforce that works here on base as well.
It should come as no surprise that these on-base and beyond the fences initiatives that we have shown you today have been adopted on the national level.
Innovations at Fort Bragg and Camp Lejeune are having an important and positive impact around the state, around the region, around the nation with respect to ways to advance both readiness and conservation at the same time.
We've also done it at the national level. I mean, Department of Defense with Department of Interior and Department of Agriculture has used Sentinel Landscapes to establish programs that will be mutually beneficial to the military and to our farmers and forestry owners.
As with our visit to Fort Bragg, we were constantly reminded of the pride and sacrifice of the men and women who have trained at Camp Lejeune. We are all honored by their presence.
We call Camp Lejeune our home. We also call it the People's Base. And when I talk to our communities outside the wire, I let them know that, look, this is your base. This is your base. We are partners in this region together. We have much a hope and desire to be able to preserve this environment. For many, it's the environment that the original landowners who were on this installation remember. We think we've had a very good effort to be able to balance the conservation efforts with the needs to be able to train our forces. And I think nobody has done it better, than we've done it here in eastern North Carolina.
We have been impressed by the skills and training of the men and women of the United States Marines, and they do it in perfect harmony with the land. We saw this while exploring North Carolina.
For additional information about this or other episodes, go to these websites. Exploring North Carolina is made possible by major financial support from DTS Software, Mainframe Storage Management Solutions, This permanent digital record of North Carolina's natural heritage will be used in schools and the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences for generations to come. because of the generous financial support of the members of State Employees Credit Union. Exploring North Carolina is produced in partnership with the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, the largest natural sciences museum in the Southeast. Let it be your field guide to the treasures of North Carolina and beyond. And by UNC TV viewers like you.